Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our lightning talks. As John mentioned, my name is Amanda Ferrante. I'm with EBSCO. I'm a product manager, and my responsibility here at EBSCO is primarily our authentication, which includes many of the different methods people use to access, as well as the interfaces that users use to gain access. So a little bit about EBSCO to contextualize what I'll share today. EBSCO is an aggregator of content. We are not a publisher, but we work with many publishers. And we provide access to e-resources and all sorts of functionality in a software platform. We currently serve over 100,000 organizations worldwide. That counts every library branch within systems and consortia. And it also includes libraries across many different markets, not just academic, but also including public, corporate, medical, and so on. They all, as some people might gather, have their own distinct problems and challenges. And as an example, I will share that a giant chunk of our customer base does still use primarily on-site IPs for access and has no remote authentication method. So as you might guess, unfortunately, we cannot build a platform specifically only for federated identity. We have to take a problem-oriented approach and really decide what user interface changes make sense for our very broad, distinct customer base. So a few years ago, as we were monitoring some problems in the identity and access management space, we came upon some data that began to create big concerns for us here at EBSCO. First and foremost, currently 63% of all access to our platform uses on-site IP ranges. From what I gather, this is actually less than many publishers or publisher platforms. However, still a big enough chunk of our traffic that we want to ensure that we are facilitating access for this, even as changes like privacy protections in browsers threaten to start failing IP access. And furthermore, as we all know, the importance of open web access has grown steadily over time. About 74% of researchers start their research at search engines or open web access points. And what all this means is if users are accessing from outside of the library portal, and if their IP access is failing, then they are more likely to land at our login page, or what some people think of as a paywall. And unfortunately, at the time we were conducting this analysis, we were observing that a huge amount of traffic hitting our login page was failing to gain access, either hitting an error message or abandoning their research altogether, 78%. And it's probably because our login page used to look like this. But we did need to take on some analysis to ensure that we completely understood why access at our login page was failing 78% of the time. So our methodologies are very similar to some of the UX methodologies that Isabel shared in the session just before this. As I mentioned, we use a problem-based approach that is focused on what we call personas, or different types of researchers, library practitioners, and so on and so forth, each of whom has different habits and goals and therefore runs into different challenges in their user journey. We also conducted many rounds of user research with many researchers around the world who fit into these various personas. And of course, we wanted to bring in as much quantitative data as possible using instrumentation and number crunching. And finally, importantly, it was very, very critical for us to conduct interviews and have a very clear and transparent feedback with librarians who tend to be very familiar with what's going on. And our findings with that older login page were many and varied. First and foremost, the login page does not support all of the different remote access methods that a user could potentially be using. And that includes a lack of clear path to federated identity or SAML single sign-on. A lot of that was due to the fact that the user experience on our page really diverged from the industry standard guidance that our community has received. And so we knew at the time that the ideal solution would not only provide an intuitive path to using remote authentication, importantly, to using federated identity, but we knew that we needed to support a standard intuitive experience for all of our users around the world, regardless of which remote authentication method they use. So I'll take you through a quick flurry of screenshots to show you our new and improved login UI that came of all of that user experience research, all of that design iteration and feedback loop. So this is a view of what the login page looks like if you hit it from the open web. As you can see, there is a Where Are You From experience front and center. Ours is branded as Find My Organization, or FMO, And importantly, the way this is distinguished from other common WAYF services in the market is that it can support all of the remote authentication methods that EBSCO's customer base could potentially use. We also included a number of bells and whistles in the FMO experience to make it as usable as possible for the many different types of researchers that we support, many of whom are first-time e-resource researchers at public libraries or in academic settings. So in terms of user testing, we ensure that the way that you search and find your organization in FMO was really, really purpose-built to how users are trying to get access. Furthermore, for those libraries who don't use federated identity and needed to use EBSCO's user interface sort of as their login page, we wanted to ensure that there was context of this page within the end-to-end library research workflow. So adding the institution name and the logo was important for the user to know that yes, they are in the right place. We also did a complete overhaul of our error messages with the very lofty goal of completely eliminating any dead ends in the various flows that this login page could factor into. And finally, our login page was built with accessibility and localization in mind. In terms of internationalization, it is supported in 33 different languages and character sets. And finally, we learned from our library customers that it's very important for this experience to be configurable to some extent to ensure that you can control how users are gaining access and also can configure FMO in the way that meets the ways they are searching. So for example, we allow you to very easily change your institution name and add a multitude of translated versions of your institution name if you have many bilingual users or have campuses or offices in different parts of the world. Furthermore, we allow for creating aliases and acronyms in case your users tend to search using an alias or an acronym of your institution. And then finally, we allow you to add email domains that are associated with your institution. And these are the email domains that would push your institution to the top of the list in our WAYF service if a user were to search with their email address. And I'm very happy to share that we exceeded all of our wildest expectations with the release of this login page. We are about, I would say, 8 months past the login page's release to the market. And since then, we've observed a 92% reduction in error messages and a 59% reduction in user abandonment of the page. So we are very happy with this result, but using all of those methodologies that I mentioned, we'll continue to monitor and take advice from our community in terms of standard experiences. So that's all I have today, and I appreciate the time.